Well, good evening. Thank you all for watching out in the internet ether waves, wherever you are. If you're joining us live, it's 6 o'clock on the Pacific Coast, and we're going to do a quick um, launch of Under the Gum Tree issue 14. Here is the new issue, hot off the presses, January 2015. And I'm joined tonight by four of the contributors from the current issue who are going to be reading a 5-minute excerpt of the piece that was published in the issue. And so before we get started, I have a few things that I need to say. Just a quick shout out to my staff who are all volunteer. So anytime we're doing anything with the magazine, I like to give them a shout out because I couldn't do this and pull this off without the help of my fantastic staff, and that includes Robin Martin, who's my senior editor, and she's watching remotely from her home here near Sacramento, California. Kate Ashey is a contributing editor, and then Becca Littman, Catherine DeJarnette, Allison Alcovendez are assistant editors. Amy Steffen is the artistic director, and so she's the one who curates the beautiful artwork that you see in the magazine, as well as does the design and the layout of every issue. And then last but not least is Katie Walker, who's my editorial intern, and she is the voice of Under the Gum Tree on all things social media, which is awesome because that is a huge task, and she does a really great job of it. Also, real quickly, if you are watching live and you are tweeting about this event, you can use the hashtag #GumTreeLive, and that's great for you to use on Twitter or Instagram or really any social media platform that you're on. So we'd love to see what you have to say about tonight's broadcast. Let's see, what else? Oh yes, Under the Gum Tree is a reader-supported magazine, which means there are no advertisements in our pages, and so we depend heavily on your support by subscribing, which you can do visiting us online, underthegumtree.com/subscribe. You can get a digital subscription for a mere $2 a month, which is less than your caffeine habit. And then the printed subscription is $7 a month, and we are published quarterly, so you get the digital and print mailed to you with the print subscription. So I think that covers all of the welcome info. We're going to get started, and each of our readers tonight are going to do a 5-minute excerpt of the piece published in the current issue of Under the Gum Tree, which means if you like what you hear, and I know you will, please check us out online and either buy a hard copy, a digital copy of this issue, or check out the subscription options. So our first reader this evening is originally from San Diego, California, and she's currently living in Portland, Oregon, where she is an MFA candidate at Portland State University, and her work has been published in The Rumpus, The Riveter, and Cut Bank. Please welcome Heather Quinn.
Hi there. Well, this is really exciting. I've loved all the readings all the writing from this issue of Under the Gum Tree, so it's just so humbling and such an honor to read amongst all these great ladies here. I have a couple short excerpts from my piece, Memento Mori, that I'm going to read. So, okay. Just past Tacumba, I pulled off the road to take in a strange new scene. Up till now, the interstate had climbed through the Laguna Mountains in graceful, rolling inclines, through grassy meadows and hills dotted with pine trees and scrub oak. Then, as the road leveled off, I found myself surrounded by a Martian landscape of rust-red oval boulders balanced precariously on top of each other in tall peaked piles. Vegetation disappeared, and there was no life in sight, save a few lizards and a couple of hawks making slow, lazy circles in the air. Suddenly, a cloud of flame-colored shapes filled the mountain pass, flashing brightly against the deep blue desert sky and occasionally falling onto my windshield in tiny explosions of sticky yellow-green. I stepped out of my car and stretched out my arms, allowing them to land weightlessly on my hands. Thousands of butterflies floated through the jagged canyons on the dry side of the Laguna Mountains, riding thermal currents of dry air on their journey north from Mexico. I brought my hands close to my eyes and looked at their trembling soft bodies, their blood-orange wings speckled with curving patterns in black and white, while they drummed their furry feet against my skin. It was like a miracle. I was on my way to see the desert for the first time, following my mother's suggestion to drive from San Diego to Yuma, right past the border with Arizona, where what remains of the Colorado River passes through the desert before dying just shy of the Sea of Cortez. She had described an expanse of giant sand dunes stretching for miles on either side of the freeway. I was searching for an interesting subject for a landscape assignment in my college photography class. Others were handing in pictures of beaches and tame mountain scenes, and I wanted something different. The imperial sand dunes in the far southeastern corner of California sounded perfect. Mom told me she had driven here on a trip with my father a long time ago, and she hadn't seen anything like it since. I got back in my car and drove through the clouds of butterflies, down the mountain along a winding road that clung to the sides of sheer cliff in some places. From the foot of the mountain, the desert stretched endlessly in all directions, an entirely flat void, broken in the distance by the sharp, chocolate-brown peaks of the mountain range. I stared through my camera at tall, spiny ocotillos stretching their arms toward the sky. Further east, I found the ocean of undulating sand dunes. In my camera viewfinder, I framed networks of curves and lines thrown into outline by the shadows of the setting sun. I drove back in darkness, carrying the precious ghost images of the day in my camera bag, bunched in tight spirals inside tiny metal cylinders, etched into a delicate emulsion of gelatin and silver painted onto the plastic film. When I got home, I saw the grate of my car was embedded with dozens of corpses, vibrant butterfly wings that fluttered in the wind for months afterwards. I let them fall off on their own, not daring to touch the frozen bodies of creatures who had seemed as insubstantial as spirit before they died. They gradually dissolved into the air, color fading into a thin, translucent veil, an initiation into a mystery I never fully understood. After my mom passed away, I took up my camera with a deep sense of urgency. I traveled along back roads in the mountains east of San Diego, exploring abandoned buildings in the desert where I had first photographed sand dunes and ocotillo. After a decade of looking at the world through a viewfinder, photography was a way not to freeze the world in some ideal state, but to view as the camera did, unjudging, undiscriminating, the world around me that no one else chose to stop and see. I lingered around forgotten homes along Old Highway 80, a desert road that once was a main thoroughfare, connecting San Diego with Savannah, Georgia. I was haunting a dead world, stalking some beauties left behind. I kept returning to 3 small houses, built close to each other and surrounded by a dead forest of short, dusty palm trees. Little clouds of dust, bright white dust, rose into the air with each footstep, settling on my tongue and filling my mouth with the taste of salt. The ruins were in a desolate, forgotten community that was once named Dixieland, although none of the locals I talked to recognized the old name. They stood in the middle of Imperial Valley, an improbable land of agricultural bounty in the desert, built on the ancient floodplain of the Sea of Cortez. Inside one of the houses, dressed up with the tatters of coral pink curtains and the remnants of white Christmas lights, I found a family photo album lying in the dust. A young girl, her older brother, their parents smiling over them. I cannot guess at what panic drove them out so suddenly, leaving these memories behind. The house crumbling around the album, the desert wind tearing the curtains to tatters. These are signs enough of mortality. But at the very least, these photos can tell another story. There was life here once, and once someone was watching. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. One thing that's interesting about doing readings this way is that there's no applause after each reader. So we're just gonna, we can do the clapping for you when we're done, but there's not the same sound or transition. So our next reader is the founder of Writing Women's Lives, where she teaches women writers to claim their truth and write their memoir stories with confidence, which is a mission that I personally absolutely love. That's why I love creative nonfiction. Creative nonfiction as a genre. She's also a certified Amherst Writers and Artists Workshop leader, and she holds an MFA in creative nonfiction. In addition to teaching classes and mentoring women at Writing Women's Lives, she teaches writing at Randolph College in Lynchburg, Virginia, and she is currently at work on a memoir. Please welcome Marilyn Bosquin.
Thank you, Jana, so much. And thank you, everyone who works to put this beautiful magazine together. And I submitted Against Memory to Under the Gum Tree because I especially appreciate the tagline, tell stories without shame. Against Memory is a story that I didn't tell for a long time. And in fact, I wrote around it and around it for quite a while because of the silencing effects of shame. And as a writing coach, I often tell my clients at Writing Women's Lives, to trust that wise writing self within you and to heed the story that wants to be told. And Against Memory is one of those stories for me. So thank you for the opportunity this evening to push myself even farther out of silencing and shame by sharing it with you this evening. So, Against Memory. Until one fine day, you blurt to your husband, "Papa sexually abused me." And he looks at you, your husband, not your grandfather, a Papa you loved dearly, by the way. Your husband looks at you with hazel eyes more blue this October day than green, his sideburns graying. And for a moment, you think you hear the distant tick of a clock, though whether it's the church bell across the street tolling the hour or an echo in your mind, you cannot say. Your husband, here, in your writing room now, he says, "I know." You stop crying. "You know?" "Yes, you've told me before," he tells you. "I've told you before?" Because years of not telling has riddled your memory into bits of knowing but not knowing, congealed in your brain like the head cheese Papa used to bring home from the butcher shop, bits of meat from the head of a calf, congealed into a gelatinous loaf, an explosion of flesh caught in time, a permanent aftermath. "Yes," your husband says. "You told me during that stretch back in forest when we wrote together every morning." Months from now, you will remember your husband saying, too, on this fine October day, that it was like a sea creature, you telling, the way it surfaced, then disappeared. A sea creature? A voice echoing in my head. Why would you say such a despicable thing? You hated head cheese, but you ate it anyway sitting at Grandma and Papa's table in the Bronx, because Grandma told you to be a good girl, Shotzi, and clean your plate. And because you were a good girl, you did what you were told, chewing your truth to cud. Was this the moment the clock above the sink in that kitchen stopped ticking, its second hand caught in a perpetual strain against memory? Days later, same October, your husband finds you sobbing over your writing desk. "Papa," you say, then gross. Then you bolt past your husband to the bathroom and you heave your congealed memory into the toilet while your husband, who has followed you, rubs your back with the hand you've been holding for 21 years now. And in this moment, finally, you separate your husband from Papa and you say, "Thank you," and "I'm sorry." He says, "There's nothing for you to be sorry about." Oh, but there is. You are sorry you ate the head cheese in that kitchen in the Bronx, where the girl you once were looks up from the table where she still sits in your memory, and you say to her, "Sweetheart, you do not have to eat the head cheese." And she smiles, though whether to herself or to you, you cannot say. But from this distance, you watch her push back her chair, get up from the table, and spit into the sink. And just then, the clock that is stopped in your memory lets go a rusty tick, tock, this fine October day, and you tell your husband, who's still rubbing your back, "I'm okay now." And he says, "Of course you are." Of course you are. Because one fine day, the head cheese no longer matters. You are here now. You are here. Finally, now you know you are here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Applause, applause, applause. Our next reader is a writer living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She graduated with her MFA in creative nonfiction from Chatham University. Her work has previously been featured in Weave magazine and the New Yinzer, as well as interviews in Fourth River and creative nonfiction. As her day job, she manages communications and outreach for an educational technology startup. And here is Alicia Barnes.
Hi, Jana. Thank you so much to you and everyone under the gum tree. And it's such an honor to have my work printed alongside these wonderful, talented ladies. So thank you to all of you reading tonight as well. So this piece is called Blueberries. When I was a little girl, my favorite snack was frozen blueberries. I loved the sound of them falling into the ceramic bowl like a broken string of pearls. Little purple balls with a sheen of furry frost, so easy to pinch one by one and plop into my mouth. At first, they were too cold to venture to my tongue. They clung together in mock solidarity in strange, jagged shapes. So I imagined a kingdom, created a story, separated them by size and roundness into social classes, into peasants and royalty. I'd eat the sickly, sour ones first, suck and swallow them like crushed ice. They were not even worth the time to chew. As time passed and I moved up the ranks, they became sweeter, and I kept them with me as long as I could. Pushed them with my tongue to the corners of their prison until their eventual plummet. By the time I got to the dukes and duchesses, the prince and princess, and finally the king and queen, the warmth of the kitchen would have softened them enough that they were melting, deflating in a pool of their own juices. I loved these ones best, and apologized before I popped them violently with my tiny guillotine teeth. Afterwards, I'd go to the mirror and look at my hands and face smeared with a purplish red, evidence of my bloody coup. I was a god and monster then, and I could create and eat as many worlds as I could imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Applause, applause, applause for Alicia. And our final reader for the evening writes poetry and prose in Portland, Oregon, where she also translates poems from Russian to English just to keep things light. She has been published in or has work forthcoming in the Writer's Chronicle, the Los Angeles Review, Brevity, New Ohio Review, and Bachelet. She works as a teacher, administrator, and editor, and you can find more about her at judithpullman.com. So please welcome Judith Pullman.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, all you lovely, wonderful, wonderful women. It's an honor to be here. And I've never heard anyone else read my bio like that, and I'm going to edit it a little bit now, so that's good to know. This is the opening of a piece called Prelude to the Performance. I insert my fare card, and two wings open wide enough for me to pass through Farragut West Station towards the Kennedy Center. Gleaming in the silver dress that my grandmother found at the Jewish women's resale store, and 45 minutes away from my 15th opera, I am ready. I have listened to Puccini's Tosca 3 times with the libretto in hand, and dreamt for a full week of the myriad ways the director might stage Tosca jumping off a building to her death. Having not yet received walking lessons in heels, I clack and thud at each step on the concrete until reaching the escalator that carries me towards the dusk and my mother. My grandmother takes my hand as we step into the city. A person who lives in a blanket at the top of the escalator asks us for anything. Grandmother's thick neck does not jot to register his voice. "Tonight we are going to the opera, Judith," she says. And we'll respond to those voices over there, not the street Michigana. As we step past the bristly blanket, I notice his gums and wonder if teeth are a necessity for singing opera. I am young enough to see that he is like me, a lonely person living in the shadow of some grand and untouchable thing. I start to tell Grandma how this guy never had a chance, but she is already pulling me, spelling out the hazards of tobacco, and I do my best to keep up. Together, we pass the enormous fountain lit by rainbow lamps. My grandmother pinches my cheek and brushes a curl from my face. I curled it myself, and I felt proud until seeing it now in the water, because it looks more like bedhead than an intentional choice. This always happens. I swear to myself I'll practice with the iron before De Rosenkavalier in June, and maybe even ask for my mother's help. Grandmother's hair looks fine. She's adept at braiding her long, whitish blonde hair and twisting it atop her head like a cinnamon roll. Her dress, however, does not look fine. She wears a two-piece peach suit, which makes her skin look ashen, and her midsection look like she's sneaking Coke bottles into the opera house. I shrink to see my full form in the water, where I more resemble a helmetless cosmonaut than an opera connoisseur. Connoisseur, a term I learned last year. Connoisseur. I pass the word over my tongue and my teeth like chewing gum. Grandma and I are a team, bonded through my mother, who is probably doing vocal airplanes far inside the Kennedy Center's front doors, which we now push open to step onto the red velvet carpet. All heads wear a halo under the glow of these chandeliers. Everything is red, gold, ivory, marble, soft, smooth, and cold to the touch. I want to put my hands on everything. Unfortunately, Grandma will not let go of my hand for fear that I might wander off, which I will. They talk loud, these people. The senators and the Supreme Court judges and Grandmother, who should know better. I only venture a whisper in this holy of holies, where even the jujubes seem different, and not just because they cost $5 a box. I entreat Grandmother to buy some, and she offers me a Werther's from her jacket pocket. She does not understand. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Applause, applause, applause. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Heather, Marilyn, Alicia, and Judith for braving some of the technology in some cases and sharing your stories with us. It was awesome. And we do have this wonderful lineup of women here tonight, and I do want to say I love that, and I love supporting women, but I also publish men. So it just so happened that we weren't able to get any males who have been published in this issue who are available to join us tonight. So I like to point that out because Under the Gumtree is not a magazine for women only, although, as I have said, we have some fabulous women here tonight. And so thank you all for being here and for sharing your stories and for claiming that shame, as Marilyn was talking about. Thank you, viewers who are here joining us live. And if you are, please visit us online underthegumtree.com, and you can also find us on virtually every social media outlet: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, you name it, we're on there. So follow us and like us and share us and tell your friends about us. We're just about 3 years old. We've been publishing for 3 years, and so we're still a very young publication, and we need all the support we can get. And so I thank you for sharing and for watching. And again, lastly, for our readers, thank you, ladies. And one last silent applause for all the readers here tonight. And if you enjoyed this broadcast, I would love it for you to put some comments on YouTube and share the link with your network online. So until April is the next release of Under the Gumtree. We'll do another live broadcast, Gumtree Live, to launch the April issue, which is when I will see you all next. Thank you so much.